A war drum beat rippled through the atmosphere of the Threxian Colosseum, vibrating cup holders, rib cages, and certain species' reproductive sacs. A million creatures leaned forward, segmented arms or clawed hands gripping the edges of levitating seats. The sky above boiled with advertising drones. Somewhere behind it all, a gas giant loomed, silently photobombing every broadcast frame. From the box seats, Lord Prosecutor Voltage of the Kazanike Federation slurped a pale, squealing delicacy and muttered, "I do hope the human breaks quickly this time. Last year's one made such a mess." He dabbed his slime-slick chin with a nanofiber cloth. The arena, a masterpiece of sadism and orbital engineering, hummed with calibrated anticipation. Platforms shifted beneath null-gravity wells. Simulated weather patterns, acid fog, molten hail, sonic vortexes, cycled through the corners. It was an equal opportunity death trap, though equal here meant designed to flatter apex species metabolism and crush everything else into chunky salsa. Above it all floated a hollow board reading. Intergalactic Apex Trials. Quarter-final match. Hunter versus Human. The audience roared at the word human. It was a laughter-laced cheer, the sound one might make watching a toddler challenge a wood chipper to a dance-off. The cameras panned past grotesque splendor. A cluster of sentient fungi pulsed in unison. A three-eyed bird queen wearing 12 medals on 12 chests cawed through a translator. Their squishiness is charming. I rate the humans' odds at negative enthusiasm. Meanwhile, in the commentator booth suspended on a gimbal of tense magnetic fields, voice analyst Grorvac the Voxathian adjusted his throat sacs. We are moments away from today's spectacular bout, featuring an unaffiliated Homo sapiens sapien, believed to be female, armed only with a primitive kinetic rail firearm and poor judgment. His co-host, a cybernetic mantis with a voice like jazz through a meat grinder, chuckled. Some say this is cruel. I say, tradition is just cruelty with branding. Across the arena, inside the prep tunnels, the so-called entertainment stood silent in shadow. No entourage. No sacred adornments. No roaring war fans. Just one woman, lean, dark-eyed, utterly unremarkable if you ignored the gravity-compensated rifle at her side and the small flickering light in her left iris that marked her as neurolinked. She leaned against the curved obsidian wall of the prep chamber, letting her eyes wander the telemetry being piped through her optic nerve. Heartbeat steady. Wind vectors stable. Audience screaming at 82 decibels. Cratchal death chants in Quadrant 3. 1 enemy. 11 exits. 5 likely, 2 useful. Somewhere nearby, a jelly-like intern from the Colosseum casualty coverage team oozed forward and extended a nervous pseudopod holding a microphone. Miss Human, any final words before combat? She glanced at him. Yeah, she said dryly. Duck. The translator glitch pinged. I'm sorry, did you say? From overhead, a fragment of a previous contestant, possibly a spleen, splattered onto the jelly's head. He squelched away in terror. Ellie, if her file name was to be believed, simply adjusted her rifle strap and rolled her shoulder. High above, the first bell tolled. A sonorous pulse through magnetic fields, sending flocks of camera drones swirling like silver birds. And with that, the world leaned in. Out in the VIP suite, Ambassador Hlock of the Trilon Confederacy nervously readjusted his head symbiote. Isn't it inefficient? This repeated mockery of a non-combatant species. Senator Plick from the oxygen-free Dominion laughed, his face skin distending in delight. Oh, come now. Humans are wonderful for morale. They scream like guilt and die like theater. Besides, this one signed the release forms. Their Earth Council insists it's voluntary. Voluntary like a condemned man choosing his flavor of death, Hlock muttered. The senator patted his shoulder with a metallic claw. Exactly. Civility. Below them, massive stone doors opened with operatic grandeur. Smoke, lasers, the thudding bass of 1,000 war drums. A gust of superheated air burst forth as the Cratchal champion seed emerged. Hraxer. The crowd went feral. 12 feet tall, plated in organic armor that undulated with each flex, his mouth opened vertically. 2 tusks curled like scimitars. The floor cracked beneath his gait. He howled a war song in his native dialect, which roughly translated to, "I tear, therefore I am." Ellie watched him from the far entrance, blinking once. Hraxer pounded his chest, which released a dozen shrieking pheromone drones. They swarmed the air, painting his name in clouds of bioglow. A child in the stands inhaled one and began levitating uncontrollably. Her parents cheered. "Ladies and gentlefiants," the announcer boomed, his voice amplified through 16 sonic channels. "Place your final wagers. The human is designated Freeform Entry 7G. The Cratchul is a 3-time champion with a body count longer than the DNA chain of a violin cannibal." Odds appeared in glittering text. Ellie, 247 to 1. One enthusiastic sentient toaster placed a 5-credit bet on her and was immediately mocked by its plugmates. Backstage, Ellie exhaled. Just once. Her fingers twitched on the rifle. Her neural HUD scrolled targeting calibrations, muscle feedback loops, and the gravitational shift tables from the arena's randomizer engine. To her left, a holoscreen buzzed to life. A translator AI tried its best motivational speech algorithm. "You statistically resemble organic paste by now, but fear not, the pain will be educational." She muted it with a blink. Across the arena, Hraxer slammed a claw into the ground. A spike of bloodstone erupted, nearly impaling one of the camera drones. He roared again. Ellie took one step forward. Not much. Just one step. But the arena noticed. The cameras twitched to her. She raised her rifle and rested it against her shoulder. The audience, those millions of carnivorous, sapient, ravenous viewers, tilted their heads in collective anticipation. It was like watching a gnat stand before a fusion-powered freight train and say, "Your move." From the shadows, a tall figure in diplomat's robes folded her arms. She had no banner, no species markers, just a tiny pin on her lapel, UNSF, black on matte silver. She watched Ellie through a secure monocle HUD, mouth unmoving. The second bell chimed. Combat would begin in 30 seconds. In those 30 seconds, the entire galaxy would remember why it dismissed humanity, and why that was a mistake. Ellie leaned into her first step like someone stepping into rain. No fear, no rush, just inevitability. Her pupils narrowed to slits. She moved like someone who had done this before, just not here, and not with this many cameras. Far above, orbiting satellites beamed the scene to trillions. Somewhere in the dark between galaxies, a species still debating whether humans should be classified as intelligent tuned in for a laugh. They would regret that. By the time Ellie's second step landed, the arena had begun to quiet, an anticipatory hush sharp as a blade's edge. Not because she posed a threat, but because somewhere, something primal stirred. And it didn't like being underestimated. Again. The corridor that led to the arena smelled like scorched lubricant, iron-rich blood, and overcompensating citrus-scented disinfectant, industrial-scale clean, with a side of panic. Fluorescent panels buzzed overhead in a rhythm that almost kept time with the rising beat of the arena drums. Every few meters, a flat screen glowed with propaganda, holograms of champions, sponsorships from weapons manufacturers, and a looping safety message reminding contestants to bleed responsibly. Ellie ignored all of it. She moved with the absent-minded rhythm of someone too familiar with waiting to feel nervous about it anymore. Her rifle hung at her side, unpowered. One hand twirled a bullet between her fingers, not out of bravado, but habit, like a pianist warming up before a funeral. Her armor was matte and minimal. No spikes, no flowing capes, no gory handprints from past victories. Nothing that screamed apex predator. Just quiet black plates, soft boots, and a neural patch at the base of her skull with faint pulse signals blinking like a heartbeat in exile. A voice chirped through the embedded speaker near the door, 60 seconds to surface entrance. Initial environmental modifiers include unstable gravity flux, ambient ashfall, and feral kinetic drones. Have a great match. Ellie made no reply. Across the hallway, her reflection wavered in a strip of polished alloy. She stared at it briefly, not long enough to be vain, just long enough to confirm she still looked like someone capable of murder. Underneath the armor, pale skin, short cropped hair, A face that might once have been called kind, if you'd caught it before the silence set in. Her expression now wasn't grim, just subtractive. Like someone who'd pared down everything non-essential, including hope. The jelly creature from earlier, Frint, apparently, slithered nervously into view again, microphone in one pseudopod and a press badge pinned to his gelatinous mass like a fig leaf of credibility. Ms. Sniper, Ellie, isn't it? Could we get a pre-match quote for the archive? Just a few words for posterity, maybe a threat. Ellie glanced at him, unimpressed. I don't do previews. Frint vibrated apologetically. Of course. It's just, well, the betting pools are calling you Dead Meat Prime. You're up against Traxxer, and the odds have officially looped around from tragic to comic. Ellie turned, lifting an eyebrow. Comic? Technically. You're now listed under Novelty Outcome. Right between Arena Collapse and Unexpected Divine Intervention. A pause. Ellie chuckled. Just once. Put me down for all three. Frint blinked, or did whatever the gelatinous equivalent was, and slowly oozed backward, reconsidering his life choices. Ellie stepped past him without another word. Her HUD pinged. A notification from Central Command, marked UNSF Aegis clearance. Non-interference confirmed. Observation ongoing. Outcome, at operative discretion. Translation, no backup, no evac. Do your worst. The neural link hummed at the edge of her spine, quietly syncing with the implanted reflex cores that made her muscle memory fire milliseconds ahead of thought. She could feel the rifle at her hip whispering alignment stats into her peripheral vision. She didn't need to look down to know the cartridge chamber was clean. Traxxer would be all spectacle, blunt trauma and sonic intimidation. His species had evolved in a hypergravity world where subtlety died screaming. Their combat doctrine could be summarized as rush, roar, rend. Ellie's doctrine was shorter. Breathe. Exit. She touched her temple and brought up her personal archive. Not memories. Not anymore. Just fragments, disjointed video clips and encrypted mission logs from a dozen covert deployments the galaxy refused to admit had occurred. Redacted audio. Grainy footage. Silent kills in low orbit. A file titled Gethra Prime, Civilian Acknowledgement Waiver, flickered past before she shut it all down again. No point looking back. Not today. In the center of the prep chamber, a cylindrical platform began to rise. Smooth and slow, bathed in amber light. The signal was clear. It was time to meet the crowd. Ellie stepped onto it without fanfare. As it elevated, she caught glimpses of the arena forming around her. Sliding plates of shifting terrain, flickering shield barriers, drone cameras buzzing like metallic wasps. And at the far end, a seismic rumble. Traxxer arriving to the tune of tribal drums and audience ecstasy. The crowd spotted her. A ripple of amusement echoed through the stands. Her entrance was not glorious. No flames. No banners. Just one small armed mammal with a bad haircut and a worse kill ratio. Ellie scanned them, her eyes unblinking. 1,000 species, millions of eyes. All of them expecting her to die. She smiled. It was the kind of smile that left bruises. Back in the control tower, an announcer read her stats aloud with performative pity. Ellie Caden, unaffiliated human sniper. No sponsorship. No clan. Combatant record classified. Armament, antique Gauss-based railgun. No confirmed wins in the Apex trials. She weighs less than one of Traxxer's arms and, judging by her vitals, either has nerves of steel or already died inside. Ellie tilted her head to the left, then the right. Vertebrae cracked. Her gaze slid to the towering Cratchwell now roaring in his corner of the arena, slathered in glowing blood mud, surrounded by flame petals and ceremonial murder drums. He flexed, cracked the floor tiles, and bellowed something in his language that translated loosely as, "I shall drink your bones." Ellie raised a single finger. Not that one. Just her index. Pointing at him. Almost bored. Traxxer paused, confused. The crowd paused, intrigued. Ellie turned that point into a small circle in the air, tracing a target. Then she dropped the hand again. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise written in geometry. Backstage, in a private suite, a cloaked figure muttered into a secure comm. Subject cadence pre-combat psychology stable. Target lock potential at 94.3%. Begin archival protocol. This may go poorly for the Cratchel. The person on the other end said only, "Let her paint." Ellie adjusted the rifle's angle. The internal recoil compensators shivered, whispering numbers into her mind. Distances. Wind speeds. Structural weak points. The HUD flashed a minor warning. Heartbeat too low. She exhaled and leaned into it. The third bell chimed. The match began. And Ellie Caden moved like someone who had never truly stopped fighting. The crowd leaned forward, roaring. She took her first step forward, and made it feel like the beginning of a war. The first thing Ellie registered was the change in gravity. Not visually, the arena was still there, all jagged terrain and lava-cracked tiles, but in the bones. Her stomach tugged half a beat off her stride as she stepped onto a shifting platform that registered at 0.74 G and falling. Hraxer didn't care about gravity. He came at her like a collapse in progress. 6 tons of Cratchel war beast, charging on legs thick enough to be mistaken for siege pillars. His roar fractured the nearby audio drones. The crowd howled in pleasure. Ellie moved 3 steps to the left. Not fast. Not frenzied. Just exactly enough. A sonic shockwave from his forward stomp cracked the air behind her as she cleared the ring of unstable terrain he'd targeted. He didn't notice. He wasn't supposed to. His species considered dodging an insult. A kill was only honorable if it bled, begged, or broke on impact. She did none of the above. Instead, she ducked behind a pillar made of spun coral stone, which promptly exploded under a swipe from Hraxer's left claw. Shards sliced past her head, embedding into the bulkhead wall behind her. Ellie didn't flinch. She was already elsewhere, kneeling under a magnetic suspension beam, loading a single round. Her rifle hummed against her shoulder. It hadn't fired yet. It was still thinking. Hraxer bellowed again, scenting the air. His tail lashed into a power node, shorting the gravity around them and causing her to momentarily float. Ellie used the burst of 0G to drift sideways across a fissure and land catsoft behind a slagged generator tower. Time to calibrate. The match announcer's voice rattled overhead. And the human is still alive. Barely. Fascinatingly avoidant strategy. Her blood loss is modest. Her dignity questionable. The crowd laughed. Ellie checked her vitals. A minor bruise along her thigh, a scratch across the forearm, likely from coralstone shrapnel. Nothing mission critical. The real injury would come if she stayed defensive too long. Hraxer was tireless, but not stupid. Eventually he'd slow his attacks, start watching patterns. That couldn't happen. She pressed a gloved finger to the arena floor. Heat. 68 degrees Celsius. Slippery from melted adhesives and ceremonial fluids. Limited traction. Perfect. Hraxer came through the tower like it owed him money. Ellie ran. Not away, but through. Past him. Too close. Close enough to hear the wet click of his secondary mandibles twitching. He turned, claws out. But Ellie wasn't there. She'd vaulted off the edge of a hovering, flipped into a pressure sink, and landed hard on the low platform to the south. It dipped under her weight. She calculated the rebound time. 1.2 seconds. 1 heartbeat. The world tilted. Ellie snapped the rifle up and fired. The shot didn't aim for Hraxer. It pinged a mirrored deflection plate on the ceiling, bounced down into an obsidian arch, skipped off a hanging torch fixture, and ricocheted, once, twice, thrice, before striking the underside of a kinetic drum tower. The tower collapsed in spectacular fashion, spilling molten brass over the tiles just as Hraxer took his next step. He screamed. Not in pain, yet. Just rage. Surprise. The Cratchel were not used to chaos they hadn't caused themselves. Ellie didn't wait for the reaction. She was already moving. Geometry was faster than muscle. Her mind whirred. Arc trajectory, Check. Environmental modifier. Check. Gravity flux. Oscillating. Enemy sight line. Obstructed. Window. 3.4 seconds. She threw a stun disc. It clanged harmlessly against a wall. Praxer laughed, until the wall exploded. The disc hadn't been a weapon. It had triggered the wall's own unstable alloy. An accidental oversight by the arena designers, or perhaps a little help from someone on the inside. Either way, it left the Cratchwell champion coated in smoking debris, staggering back as exposed muscle steamed in the heat. Still, he didn't fall. That was fine. Ellie wasn't trying to win yet. Not really. She was gathering data. Praxer adapted fast. His footing shifted now. He braced before striking. He stopped roaring. Good. She wanted him quiet. Because silence was where she worked best. The arena began to rotate. Not visibly. The floor was still, but the artificial horizon skewed 15 degrees, enough to throw off equilibrium for any unaugmented species. The crowd shrieked in delight. Bets recalibrated mid-match. Someone tried to hack the odds algorithm and was promptly arrested by a drone with a taser for a face. Ellie rode the shift, sliding into a crouch as the panel beneath her dipped. Her HUD readjusted orientation. She didn't care. Her rifle didn't care. It was an old model, manual sync, eye-based reticle. No fancy AI assistance. She liked it that way. Praxer lunged again, faster this time. She let him. At the last possible second, she fired a single burst, not at him, but the panel beneath his feet. It cracked, split, and tilted. He stumbled, one leg punching through the floor. She sprinted. 3 strides. A leap. A twist mid-air. And then she was above him. Praxer roared upward. And Ellie pulled the trigger. The bullet entered through the roof of his mouth, just past the row of defensive ridges, through a gap so narrow most AI wouldn't bother trying. But she had seen it, timed it, mapped it. A tiny architectural oversight in Cratchwell biology, now weaponized. The round exploded. Not with force. With frequency. A silent pulse rippled through his skull cavity, vibrating neural pathways until they collapsed into mush. No mess. No theatrics. Just a sudden, shuddering stillness. Praxer's eyes dimmed. He fell backward with the slow grace of an ancient tree giving up. The arena went dead silent. A few gasped. One vomited. A bet drone short-circuited and burst into tears. In the commentator booth, Grorvac blinked slowly. That was extremely illegal in 6 sectors. His co-host, after a long pause, glorious. The cameras zoomed in. Ellie stood over Praxer's corpse, rifle lowered. She didn't speak, didn't celebrate, just waited. One heartbeat. Then the crowd erupted, but not in joy, in panic. Backroom officials scrambled. Galactic ambassadors began transmitting coded messages. Political analysts on 12 planets initiated crisis protocols. Someone screamed that this was an act of war. Ellie turned her back on the noise. Her neural HUD flashed a new message. Target neutralized. Mission tree open. Continue at discretion. She walked toward the exit gate, slow, calm, deliberate, as if she hadn't just rewritten the laws of galactic hierarchy with a single bullet. As if she hadn't just hunted the hunter. As if she wasn't already thinking about the next shot. Galactic protocol had no clear precedent for what to do when an entertainment-class species killed a champion bred explicitly not to die. The Cratchwell delegation stormed out of the Apex trials within 22 seconds of Praxer's death, snarling about ancestral dishonor and sabotage via statistical improbability. Their ambassador kicked over a hospitality droid on the way out. The droid, programmed to chirp positive affirmations, politely told him to reconsider his emotional architecture before shutting down with a musical chime. In the VIP tiers, diplomatic channels lit up like war had become fashionable again. The Trilon Confederacy locked its borders. The Glimmerfold Syndicate raised their mercenary rates by 30%. Someone from the Zarathian trade union quietly bought exclusive footage of Ellie's kill shot and sold it to a luxury arms manufacturer before she even reached the locker room. There were 37 formal protests, 9 failed assassination attempts, and 1 ambassador who choked to death on his own indignation. Ellie, meanwhile, was brushing her teeth. She stood in a concrete cell with atmospheric humidity set to damp sponge, and brushed in slow mechanical circles while her neural HUD scrolled through transcripts of panicked military chatter. She was halfway through a mildly stale protein bar and didn't bother removing her rifle when she sat down. It leaned against her knee like a particularly antisocial pet. Someone knocked. Ellie didn't answer. The door slid open anyway, revealing a bureaucrat in a 4-piece suit with 6 arms and the expression of a man who just learned he had to cancel 3 galactic wars and a parade before lunch. "Miss Caden," he began, not asking permission. "I'm Director Elif of the Apex Trials Peace Oversight Committee, interim. I've been sent to clarify your status." Ellie looked at him. Elif hesitated. "You're currently the property of the Apex Trials. Technically. Which makes you both a war criminal and a reality entertainment asset. There is, some confusion." Ellie took another bite of her bar. "About what?" "Well," Elif coughed, flipping open a tablet. "For starters, your weapon was unauthorized. The neural round you used bypassed conventional tissue and—" She pointed at a clause blinking on the screen in her HUD. Subsection 9b, combatants may bring one item of personal significance into the arena, so long as it does not violate local quantum interference treaties. "My grandfather built that rifle," Ellie said. "From the pieces of the one that killed him." Elif blinked. "That's disturbingly legal." "Glad we agree." He cleared his throat. "The Kratchul have demanded your execution. The Earth Council has disavowed your actions. And the Apex Trials Board is threatening to turn the whole event into an AI-run simulation to avoid flesh-based unpredictability." Ellie stretched out her legs. "So the usual." Elif paused again. He looked older now, or maybe just smaller. The weight of galactic bureaucracy bent his spine. He tapped something on his datapad. A few notes of classical Earth music spilled into the room before being quickly silenced. "They're afraid of you," he said finally. Ellie raised an eyebrow. "They should be." Silence. Then he handed her a datapad. It displayed an offer. Not from Earth. Not from the trials. From something darker. Embedded in a black contract, unsigned but marked with a seal Ellie hadn't seen in 5 years. UNSF Black Silence, Strategic Denial Unit. "New contract?" she asked. Elif nodded. "They want you off the board. Not dead, just elsewhere. Somewhere no one can accuse you of being a political powder keg in boots. They'll give you a clean ship, a stipend, and a list of targets no one will ever mourn." Ellie skimmed it. "Covert deniability clause?" "Of course. And if I say no?" He hesitated. "Then someone else hunts you down. Quietly. Inconveniently. Probably worse at it than you'd like." Ellie set the datapad down. "Let me guess," she said, deadpan. "They still think this is about them." Elif didn't answer. Instead, he reached into a case and pulled out something small. Tarnished. Personal. A dog tag. UNSF. Burned edges. Ellie froze. "That was recovered from Gethra Prime," Elif said. 6 years ago. Black site. Buried in a field of glass. You were marked Kia." "I was. They want to make you undead. Officially." She held the dog tag between her fingers. The metal still carried heat from a memory. It had belonged to someone she once was, or someone who died pretending to be her. She slid it into her pocket. "I'll take the ship," she said. Elif nodded. "You'll need a call sign." Ellie shrugged. "They already gave me one." He frowned. "Which?" She turned toward the door, rifle slung over her shoulder. "Predator." As she left the room, the lights overhead flickered, not a power surge, just atmospheric interference. The signal beam to galactic networks had been cut, scrubbed, replaced by commentary about unexpected weather anomalies and a sudden technical forfeit. There would be no official record of her victory, but the silence she left behind was louder than any war cry. Somewhere, in the quiet black between stars, a new dossier opened. Ellie Caden, ex-UNSF sniper. Combat effective. Psych profile, unfathomable. Loyalty, expired. Her first target flickered into view, and far below, in the ruins of the arena, a fragment of her bullet, flattened, inert, and still warm, was collected by a Kratchual tech shaman and quietly placed on a shrine. Not as a symbol of defeat, but as warning. A simple inscription burned into the metal. She aims last.